that we had to discuss. I appreciate your patience, and we're going to start off with the superintendent report, which will be here shortly.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And this evening, I want to take a moment to introduce Mike Archer, who is the Director of Transportation Projects for the Center of Effective School Operations. Through an RFP, I should say the district put out an RFP to get services from a consulting firm to help us with our transportation services, to work with our routes for the upcoming school year. As you know, 2026-27 is going to represent profound change for the Bridgewater Raritan Regional School District. We are shifting to a full-day kindergarten program across the district. Our fourth graders are shifting to the intermediate school, and our sixth graders are shifting to the middle school. So essentially, for the 26-27 school year, we're starting with a blank piece of paper, so to speak, with all of our transportation routes that we currently run. And we have a pretty large operation. Currently, we run 83 buses, and many of them are triple route. So we are looking at, on a daily basis in Bridgewater Raritan, we run somewhere around 240 bus routes throughout the districts to take our kids to and from school. So this is a large piece of the puzzle for next year, and again, this is all due to the referendum. So tonight, Mike is going to present to the Board of Education as well as the community the options that we are looking at for the 2026-27 school year. And I believe it was a year or two before I came on as the district superintendent. The Board of Education did pass a resolution that they would seriously take a look at school start times. All right, and I know the district was on their way to moving towards a plan, and then COVID hit. And as we know, the world changed. We're still dealing with the residual effects of COVID. And COVID, as we know, had a profound effect on our transportation system. All right, and it's not just in Bridgewater, but really across the state of New Jersey, where all of a sudden we dealt with driver shortages that we had never seen before. So we thought, and we've debated this and set a schedule that the best time to really explore these options would be for the 2026-27 school year, because the last thing you would want to do is change a school schedule, and then next year you change it again. So the time frame we're looking at is as follows. We're going to look at options that are going to be presented by Mike. And then what we're going to do is after his presentation, the Board of Education will ask questions, if you have any, and then we'll open it up for public comment, but on this topic only, all right, to keep the conversation to transportation. And then as a whole, we need to make a decision by the end of the month. And the reason for that is as follows. Once Mike and his firm understand what we're working towards, now they do the difficult job of developing routes, figuring out how to make the whole operation work and really get into the nuts and bolts of it. And that has to all be completed really by January, because that's when we put these routes out to bid. And typically we have contracts approved in March or April for the following school year. So again, even though it's the first week in September, or the second week of September, I should say, time is of the essence right here. So I know I've gone on way too long, so I want to turn the microphone over to Mike Archer from the Center for Effective School Operations.
All right, thank you. And thank you, members of the board, for having me tonight. Just a quick summary for some of the work we've been doing over the last, I'd say, 10 months or so. Just going to start here with a, now it's not working. Just a quick summary of transportation. 83 buses operating daily. These operate in 5 tiers. So each group of buildings has its own unique start and end time. There's 5 unique start and end times. Not every bus has a trip on each tier, so buses aren't doing 5 trips. They're typically doing either 2 or 3. So they're picking from those 5 different start times. There is capacity throughout the network. By that I mean there are available seats on the buses. Right now there's a constraint placed by the schedules of the schools and how buses need to get from place to place. The reason we say there is capacity, the average bus route today has 33 students assigned to it. Statewide, New Jersey has a policy where there's a ceiling on bus capacity at 55 passengers. So we know there's a few empty seats if you take the average across the whole fleet. But again, it's a timing constraint right now. To add to this complexity of tiering and scheduling, 3 different vendors provide transportation services, plus the district owns its own buses and employs its own drivers. So there's essentially 4 different transportation providers operating daily in the district. Like Bob said, new schedules, the result of that will be new routes and potentially new vendors who are interested in operating these routes. We'll find that out when we go to bid in winter of this school year. Some additional considerations, sort of an impetus for doing this blank slate routing. We know that enrollment is very slowly declining year over year, but the total fleet has increased in the last several years. So there was a need for a blank slate redesign of routes. Hasn't been done in several years. So the results of this preliminary analysis was that we believe we can pull some buses away from the high school fleet. We estimate 6 buses. The driveway, as we all know, is full of school buses. And so to drive some efficiencies into the high school routes, we do understand that the existing fleets can accommodate full-day kindergarten and can accommodate an additional grade at the middle school. Like I mentioned, there's currently 5 tiers, not much time in between the start and end times. Thus, the buses don't have a lot of time to complete pickups and drop-offs. In some cases, they're late to get to their subsequent route. So what could that look like if there were additional times, which kind of fed into some of our original options that we worked it down to 2, but there were some other ones where we added a lot of time for the buses to do their thing. So each option has been modeled in route management software. It's the software that is used to manage bus routes in the transportation department. It's called Versatrans. In order to determine the fleet size and other transportation implications of these options if they were to be implemented. So we're currently in the second week of school. Transportation is still a little bit crazy and hectic, and new students are submitting their new addresses, and bus stops are being added and things like that. So it's really tough to take a snapshot of current transportation. But over the next couple of weeks, I'll be working with Kathy, the transportation director, to make sure we get the accurate data and we can feed it into these models. Just some other considerations, an explanation for our process. We kind of rolled over the grades so that we can look at next year. Obviously, we don't have kindergartners. We don't know where they live, but we can make an estimate based on enrollment patterns. Then the current bus rosters are updated with that new number of students, and then also the grade adjustments and things like that. So we can get a better sense for how many students will be riding on each route. So from there, we identify different routes or clusters of routes or regions throughout the district that there are routes that could be redesigned. We're also changing the times and changing the sequence of start times. And so certain bus routes are designed to go in a particular direction in the district. That may change if they need to go to another school, a different school than they currently do for a subsequent route or tier. And then we're also holding space for pattern changes. Whenever there's a schedule change, a bell time change, there's always patterns that change in the ridership. Currently, there's some parents may drop off students. They may not be able to drop off students in a new schedule, so they may ride the bus, and vice versa. There could be students that ride the bus, and now their parents can drop them off. So we don't know exactly what those changes are going to be, so we're conservative with our estimates. And then all special programs held at specific school buildings. So if there's various programs that maybe students attend from across the district, they go to a specific building for that. All the routes are maintained. We didn't make any adjustments to those or cut any buses there. So we're talking about new bus routes. In some cases, these routes have been in place for many, many years. Same time, same bus number, same driver in some cases. So we're looking at potentially new pickup and drop-off times, a new driver, a new bus number. We know that this can create some confusion. So there will be a lot of communications over the summer of '26, including some update or rolling back of the time frame where bus information will be released to parents. So it'll be done earlier next year. Another consideration that was discussed in some of our internal meetings was picking up and dropping off in darkness. Right now we're fine, but in 2 months it's going to be dark at 4:30. So just taking that into consideration where there's bus stops that are lit or in a safe location to be dropping off in at dusk, and then just shortening the routes if need be. It's a draft for now. We're confident in our estimates. However, there may be some slight changes after the analysis of this current transportation is complete. So this is what we've been referring to as option one. It's very close to what was in place several years ago before COVID. It brings a uniform schedule for all primary schools. And then the big thing for me for logistics is there's more time in between the first and the second tiers in order to redesign bus routes and to drive some efficiencies into the transportation schedules. This may result in an increase of the fleet, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or fewer buses, but just to make note of that. Option two, the middle school starts earlier than the high school. There's some strategy involved in this from a logistics standpoint. Each school level has a different length of day. Primary is 6 hours and 20 minutes. Middle school is 6 hours and 40 minutes, and high school is 7 hours and 1 minute under this new schedule. So this causes some scheduling issues where bus routes work in the morning, but don't in the afternoon. So here you can see, if you follow the graphic, I know it's a lot of information, but you'll have to link buses in a different way where maybe the first year is middle school only, but then it's middle school and intermediate dismissing around the same time in the afternoon. And then the second tier could be high school and intermediate in the morning, but then just high school in the afternoon. So not to say that those students will be riding on the same bus, but just that fleet of buses will be active at the same time. So it's similar to option one, where we're looking for more time for the buses to operate, get more students assigned to them, utilize the seating capacity that we have, thus creating some efficiencies. And this one can be accommodated without the addition of any additional fleet or cost for transportation. And so that's really it for my presentation. This slide just has the current schedule and then the two options. So I'll kind of leave this up as we take questions.
And excuse me, and one of the things I failed to say prior to kicking off the presentation to Mike is that both of these options reinstate the lost instructional time from 4 years ago, right? That was one of the parameters when we went into this, to make it as one, to make it as cost neutral as possible, but two, to make sure that that we reestablish the minutes that were lost at a couple of our schools because of the transportation crises 4 years ago that we had. We had a flood and transportation crisis. We had to reroute our buses. We did a whole bunch of things. Actually, it was Dr. Fonder and Jason Moriello who did a lot, working with other folks to make this happen. But it's a bad memory that's in the deep recesses of my brain. But anyhow, but if anyone had kids in school at that time, you'd have to remember that abruptly we changed start times and all of that for several schools, and we actually had to cut some time. I know specifically the high school lost 20 minutes of their day with the rerouting of buses. So option 1 and option 2 brings us to where things were 4 years ago, or I should say 5 years ago. I'm sorry.
Is there other questions from the board? Mr. Joshi.
No. You go ahead.
Couple of things. The bus differences, the number of buses between option 1 and 2, how many is that? That's about 4 or 6.
Four we believe
Four.
would be needed for option 1, but then option 2 we think can be done net neutral. So
Okay.
no change.
All right. The other questions I have is many towns have, a central location where kids are dropped off and picked up just to consolidate routes and timing and all of that. Did you look at that at all or no?
I think in certain areas that might work. In certain areas it may not. Certainly by the way the policy is today, there's a lot of areas in the district, and I've spent the past 2 days driving around and observing some dismissals and buses and things like that. But it's tough. There's a lot of rural and hilly and curvy roads, and so in some cases where students can't get to that central location, there's a lot of home stops. There's a lot of driveway stops, and so that's been a practice that has just gone on. And in most cases, we're not disrupting that. In some cases where there are sidewalks, there's a more dense population. I think that's very possible. We've included that into some of our models where there's kind of a happy medium where you don't want too many kids at a particular stop, because then there can be, they're not supervised in many cases. But we are looking at consolidating stops where it makes the most sense.
Right, so you're right, in some areas you can't do it because there's no sidewalks and it's just not safe enough. But in some areas we could do it where you can actually pick up some time and reduce the buses as well. And this is going back to the number of buses. So each bus that we reduce, let's say in option 2, that's a net savings to the district as well.
Correct. And so
So that
if
would
you want to
be-
look at it by unit cost, it's approximately $100,000 a year per bus. So if you're looking at shaving a bus, and that's $100,000
Wow.
you can save roughly. It depends on some other factors, but it roughly averages out.
Okay, all right, thank you for now, thanks.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you for the presentation. I noticed in option 2 that the primary school starts at 9:20 or so.
Yes.
What's the reasoning behind such a late start for the primary school?
So the main reason for that is more so in the dismissal side of things. So and again, to my point about the varying lengths of the academic day, so the time where students are actually in the classroom, in the school building. The primary schools have a very short day, whereas the secondary schools have a longer day. So the high school, if you follow that graph, the high school dismisses at 3:01. It gives the buses 39 minutes essentially to do a route and get to a primary school to do a subsequent route. The more you shrink that window, the more difficult it becomes to schedule the buses. And so you end up with really what is occurring now is you have buses that are not filled as much. They don't have as high of a ridership, and they're shorter because they don't have as much time to do. But it has been brought up before, and we're going to look at possibly a sub option 2, where we try to bring in that time as much as we possibly can without really affecting the efficiencies.
And I guess one of the things I also noticed as well is like in terms of like I know we have an average of about 22 students in our buses versus a state maximum of 55. I was just wondering I think ours is at 33, right? We're 22 below the average. Like, what's the reasoning behind us being so low below the average?
So there's a couple things. The seating arrangement is really there's a 3 person bench and a two-person bench. And yeah, high schoolers, it's really a two-person bench and a one-person bench. But then again, high schoolers don't ride the bus that much. So it's a difficult equation to kind of balance how do you set up this roster? How do you make sure the bus is not overloaded? In some cases, I think with the average being 33, there's certainly buses that are well below that. So that's where we're focusing on, why are those buses so light? Why are they empty? And where can we maybe consolidate some buses together to drive that average up? And so if you're looking at the average, it may not increase that much, but the aggregate of the entire fleet, it would probably save a couple buses.
And then my final question is, between option 1 and option 2, which one does I guess your firm recommend between the two?
Go ahead.
We had asked them to present two options. That's really up to us to decide. So he is an unbiased
Right.
presenter who's showing us our options. And then we have to decide. I mean, there are certain things like, okay, the monetary cost of a bus, it's triple routed, is about $100,000. So you could say you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of a $400,000 difference between option 1 and option 2. That's one parameter. Another parameter is school start times. I mean, these are all things we have to digest and make. These are things that we have to digest, take in, and make a recommendation. We didn't ask Mike's firm to do that.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. I was curious, with both option 1 and option 2, does the average route length change, and by how much? Means that how long kids are gonna ride that bus for?
I don't have the exact figure for like an average increase or decrease, if that's the case. I think in many cases they do increase because that's really where the efficiency comes from. You have a certain set time frame where you want to be able to have that bus running for pretty much the entire time. That way you can get as many students and use the seating efficiently. And so I think in most cases, the routes may increase slightly, but it's not a significant amount. It would be somewhere less than 5 minutes if you look at the average.
Okay, so that's insignificant, even if it will increase a little bit, right time?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. The option 2 increases the length on the bus?
I think both would. I don't have the exact. So I think
No
the
worries.
concept though behind both is just to create more time for the buses to operate. And so you will see some routes that are extended a bit, but it's not a significant amount. You're not going to see hour-long bus rides or anything.
Thank you. Rebecca. Sorry, Mike. After.
I know you said that a lot of the buses are going to be doing 2, some are doing 3 routes.
Mhm.
Is there, and I recognize that the high school needs to get off the bus before the primary schools for parents who need their older students to get the younger kids off. If the intermediate schools got pulled back a little bit, could the primary schools get pulled back a little bit too, or is that too simple to say?
It could be. I think some of the logic behind the intermediates was that they're already starting at 8 o'clock in that option 2, and so going any earlier would be a lot. That shifting them later or earlier is really insignificant to the logistics. It's more so just that 8 o'clock is a friendlier time to start the day, I guess.
Okay. And the other question is, you had mentioned option 1 was more likely that the kids would be on the same bus driver on the way and the way back, but option 2, they may have changes?
So
Or
it-
more likely of a change?
It would be the same buses in both options. It's just that the way the deployment of the buses works will be different. So it's not like a straight tiering of, this tier works in the morning and this tier works in the afternoon. The scheduling is just a little bit different. It won't have an effect on bus numbers.
Who their driver is?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the presentation and all your work on this. Thank you for traveling here yourself from a little bit away. In the option two, the only thing kind of to Mr. Lee's point is those primary schools starting so late. Is the number of buses, is there a way to get down the number of buses for the primary schools? Are there more buses that are kind of doing special routes for those, for that thing, or bringing kids across the district at a lower capacity? Is there any way, I know you said you were going to try, but is there a good prospect of just even 10, 15 minutes could make a big difference to families and for kids who even though it's a shorter day of school, that's late into the day?
Yeah, and 10, 15 minutes is a lot in transportation.
Yeah, I'm sure it
world,
is.
So, but we're looking at it. I think what I don't want to do by shifting the primary schools is then cause everything else in the sequence to have to be adjusted as well.
Understood.
But we're definitely going to look at it and make sure what the earliest would possibly be can be looked.
That makes sense, obviously, without throwing the whole thing off. Thank you for that.
And on that point, Mike, if I could just butt in on this one part, because I know what Mike shared as we were going through this and designing it. Anyone who's in the audience or is at the table knows that unfortunately at our primaries that dismiss the latest, right? Adamsville, JFK, Bradley Gardens. We tend to have a couple of routes that are just perpetually late. And part of it is, from what Mike described, there's just not enough time for them to get to where they need to get to, especially in the beginning of the year. But by allowing this, and I know it's counterintuitive in some ways, but by allowing more time in the way that it's designed, it will actually ensure or come closer to ensuring, right? Nothing's assured in transportation, but it comes closer to assuring that those kids will get picked up at that time and go home, right? Where you do have some kids that are there later. Just, I didn't know if anyone did.
Yeah, no, that's helpful.
I'm sorry
Thank you.
if I
That's,
hijacked you.
thank you.
Lucy?
I think in the ideal world, we want to transport our kids to school at the best time, around 8 o'clock, something like that. I was looking at that chart. There are some schools that starts after 9 o'clock. I think that would pose a challenge. I think I asked Superintendent earlier whether it's possible to tighten up the operation so that we don't have schools that start after 9. Like for primary school, I know that we have all sorts of in-town sports programs that actually starts 4 o'clock. If we do use like the later time for primary schools, that will have impact on their ability to participate in sports, which I think is so important for their health and development.
Some of the schools essentially get out at this time, though. What, 3:35? Is there? Yeah.
Hey,
So
Jack?
that's right. So to answer that question, and I know it's not the answer you're probably looking for, in a district as large as ours, someone's going to be on the bus at a certain time, right? And that's kind of what we have to figure out. So yes, someone's going to be on that bus that has the 7:30 start. And yes, someone's going to be on that bus where you get out at 3:30 or 3:40, right? So whichever way you slice it, someone's going to be in that bucket. And it's part of the puzzle that we're trying to put together to say, how do we meet everyone's needs, knowing that anytime you do something like this, no one's going to be 100% happy.
And I imagine that clubs and rec will adjust as everyone's going to adjust.
Sure, and the question comes up with athletics, and I think everyone knows here. I think you have many schools, right, who batted around that, 5-10 years ago, the whole thing was school shouldn't start before 8:30 at the high school level. Well, that just made it logistically impossible for anyone to operate, especially with your after-school programming, whether it's clubs, activities, athletics, because most of those contests start at 4 o'clock. And now you're asking to sacrifice instructional time, for later school start times. And I'm not here to debate that, but we know that's that's an argument, and from my vantage point, it's a valid one. So with that said, the vast majority of athletic contests happen at 4 o'clock or 4:15. 3 o'clock gives athletes plenty of time to get to the field house, get changed, get on a bus, and go somewhere, especially because our conference, generally speaking, has local schools. Now, if there's a contest, let's say at Phillipsburg or a longer ride, you may have kids that have to get out of school on that given day a few minutes early. But it's nothing that's out of the ordinary. I could tell you for comparison's sake, Bernards Township, I believe a year ago, changed their school start times. They get out at 2:58. Montgomery changed theirs. They get out at 3 o'clock. So it's not as if we're alone in this, and I don't think we're too far over. And probably, and NJ.com had a list of arrival and dismissal times, I think, a week ago for all the schools in the state. And I think the wheelhouse, so to speak, as far as when kids generally leave at the high school level, most of them are between 2:40 and 3 o'clock. Like, that seems to be the window. Now for us, I've got to say, 7:20 is pretty early.
Yeah.
It's pretty early.
And that's what I was going to say about NJ.com. I think majority of the schools do start around 8 and finish somewhere around 3 o'clock or so.
And it does present another set of challenges. Our current schedule, we've got to understand, presents another set of challenges to our coaches and advisors. And that is, kids get out of school at 2 o'clock. You have a game, let's say a home game, that starts at 4. That's a lot of dead time for teenagers, and it's a lot to manage versus, right, you get out of school, go to the field house, get dressed, get on the bus. It would be a change, but look, and I'm coming at this as someone who coached at the high school level for 13 years. This is not an issue for athletics.
I also think it's worth noting, I know the issue of like high school students with jobs after school and other things to do, volunteering, what have you. This 3 o'clock, a pretty reasonable time for that too. We're not pushing toward 3:45, 4 o'clock, where getting to that job is difficult.
I think our conversation about sports continue to converge to high schoolers, but our younger kids do have sports to play as well. That's why I was talking about the in-town sports programs. I think that's a great way. It's very cost-effective. Families do participate a lot, and it's important for the kids' growth and future athletics. Right?
Yeah, and I think most start at 6 o'clock. They come into our fields after we're done practicing. 6 o'clock is field hockey leaves the top field. And I believe that's when Pee Wee football and all that stuff starts at Basilone. It's 5:30, 6 o'clock, so.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I
Playing
think
time.
most of the lower level sports are starting more. It's around 6 o'clock.
I know that there's some program that starts at 4, some starts at 4:30. There's more that starts at later. Right.
Yeah, I mean, with any change, right, it's not going to be perfect. And people will have to make adjustments depending on which way we go. And we make adjustments to our operations, school schedules, teachers' schedules have to change. And if the recreation programs have to adjust their time by 20 minutes, I'm sure they can do the same.
Rebecca, you had a question?
Just a comment, just about the recreation. I know many of us are probably coaches, so a lot of the recreation programs start after the parents get out because the parents are the ones who are running them at night. Just as an aside. Also with I would love to see in primary and intermediate bump up just like 15 minutes, both of them. But on average, I think all of the kids are going to be home earlier because even though the primaries are going to be getting out later, their distance on the bus is so much less than when they're going from Eisenhower and Hillside. So they're going to be on the bus a shorter amount of time. They're going to get home earlier than we saw those buses running so long. And with sports at the high school, because we have this great rotating drop schedule, our athletes are only they're not going to miss the same class every Friday night football game or every Friday night basketball game. It'll be spread throughout their schedule, which is great.
Can I just ask a question of Mike real quick? Are is athletics built in, like, are any of those buses taking students to games or extracurricular activities? Or is that just home and to and from school and everything else is kind of separate?
We we did receive a practice and game schedule, just to incorporate that into, I guess, making sure that there are buses available for when those occur. And so, yeah, that was for last year's sports schedule. So we'll have to update it for this year. But it's really just to make sure that there are buses to accommodate it. Like,
We'd have more if we went with option 2, potentially.
yes, potentially in option 2. Just because as the further you go on in the afternoon, the fewer buses that are actually going to be out operating a route, so they'll be available to do a different trip.
AJ.
Yeah, so, someone, like Bob said, someone's always going to start a little bit later. But currently, the intermediate starts at 9:15. Now, those kids, 5th, 6th graders, when they go to middle school the following year, that's a big shock during the teenage years, right? To wake up early in the morning to catch that, 7:20 bus, and then push that a little bit further to high school.
Well,
So-
and remember that 5 years ago, that middle school start time was 7:35.
Yeah.
So it's only recently that shock has only been not as much.
But no, I'm saying going from intermediate to that, right? So, there is that biological element to this too. I mean, no matter what you do, teenagers just cannot wake up early. And again, someone's going to have to wake up a little bit later. So I hope maybe 10 minutes here or there we can work on. But just wanted to add that I think 8 o'clock is a sweet spot. And everything else will work out after that.
Lucy.
So I want to look at more like on the later side of this this operation. If the primary schools are starting after 9 o'clock, at one of the options it's 9:20, how are the parents going to be able to go to work? Do they have to do like a before care? Do we have enough capacity to do that? And what about families who can't afford before care? How do we help those families?
There are you asked a few things. So one was, what are parents going to do with 9:20? I think AJ had said the intermediate essentially starts at that time right now. So
And I can tell you it's difficult.
Let him finish, please.
I'll answer your question. People figure it out, right? And when we go to this, I think the thing, because I don't want to get into a circular debate on this. In a perfect world, we'd have X amount of buses. We could all run a single tier. A single tier, a single route. Everyone goes to school at 8 o'clock. We could be in a walking district where everybody, look, when I was in Manville, all the schools started at essentially the same time. They walked. We didn't have a single bus. It was great. No offense. It was great. Yeah,
Okay.
no
Okay, 1% at a
disciplinary
time.
issues on the buses, et cetera. So unfortunately, with a triple-tiered system, and you are correct, I agree, 8 o'clock is right, that's a good time. But only one group gets that. And someone's got to go earlier and someone's got to go later. And it's up to us to figure out who that is. But no matter which way you slice it, someone's going earlier and someone's going later. It just depends on what grade band, right? So I hear what you're saying, but it's not an option.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right? It could be an option even if we all went to double-tier buses and, at millions of dollars of expense, and we could have 2 times instead of 3. But that's not the world we live in, and that's not the budgetary reality of the situation. So with that, we could certainly look at moving things, or making it tighter, and that's what we would explore. But will someone be starting at somewhere around 9 o'clock? The answer is yes. whether it's 9:20, 9:10, 9:15, it's going to be in that neighborhood. Now, to your point, do we have before care? Yes, we offer before care. And lastly, are we going to pay for before care for family? No, we're not. And that's I know it's an abrupt answer, but we don't have that in our budget, so no. So those are the parameters. And again, it's when I think we have to look at this where, okay, we want certain things, right? I want to move to this perfect world, but we've got to look at those options and say, okay, which one of those bars would you switch? Okay, what do we switch to flip this operation? It can't just be, I want this, because then that's not a solution. Anyhow.
I'm sorry, I just have two quick comments on that, well, three actually. One, what we're really talking about is a 25-minute difference between the second tier of primary schools and what we're looking at in option 2. Many people start work well before 9 o'clock. I can point to the teachers in this room who all generally start before 9 o'clock, whether or not their school starts before 9 o'clock. I started at 7:30, my wife started at 7:30, so yes, we had to do before care no matter what time the school option was. So I think that is already impacting many people. To what Bob says, it doesn't matter necessarily who's ending where, it's going to be an impact, and we're, as a board and as a district, fully cognizant that this will impact our stakeholders in our community, our kids, and our parents. And lastly, you asked about what about people that can't afford before care. It's my understanding that the before care does offer a reduction in fee for free and reduced lunch families, so there is that as well.
One last thing, I won't ask anymore. Next year, obviously, it's going to be the first year we do this. So is there a provision where it'll be tweaked as we go forward during the year, or maybe perhaps the following year, because that's going to be a big shock for some students, moving into middle school, who would be in intermediate this year, 6th, 7th, 8th. So this year is 5th graders. So is there a provision somewhere where, maybe throughout the year or maybe the following year, it can be tweaked a little bit?
So we have to have a draft of routes. It's not different from any other year. It's generally put into place around the holiday break, where we know if there's things that need to change for the next year, that we let the vendors know. In this case, yes, there will be a lot of change. I think Transportation Department understands that the first couple weeks of school, there are always changes. They do expect that next year there will be more changes and more phone calls and more, just disruption to manage. I think once we get the routes into the draft format to go out to bid, that's 90 to 95% of the way there. That there will be some slight changes over the summer. There always is. New students enroll. Like, we don't have kindergartners right now. We don't know where they live and where they're going to show up. So we've built in some wiggle room for that. So there will be changes, but will it affect the pricing? Will it affect the majority of students and their transportation schedule? Probably not. But it'll be closely monitored.
Jen?
Yeah, my first question was about before care, which I kind of know the answer because I've already asked administration. Breakfast will be provided, correct? And they'll, have opportunities to do what they do what students do in aftercare, which is, in our case, they have an opportunity to finish up homework, they have an opportunity to play with friends, and my second part of that question, or that wasn't even a question, it was a statement. But my next question is, what is more utilized in our school district in terms of before or after care? And I want to ask that because when I had kids, I didn't go back to work until my kids were out of probably second, third grade. So I feel like there is a trend to have more home care there. But I'm also curious, like, in terms of utilization, are parents more likely to enroll their kids in before after care at the elementary level versus the higher levels?
It's mostly used at the primary levels, and right now it's mostly aftercare. But anticipating a later start time, we would anticipate more enrollment in before care.
But then that would probably decrease your aftercare numbers because it's starting at a later time.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Just, if I could just Ajish point out if anyone else has any thoughts. Again, I'm not a medical expert, or high school kids, I could see an advantage to moving that time a little bit later. It's one thing to be sitting in, AP Chemistry 2 at 7:15 in the morning and being ready to go. My sense is for kids in middle school, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, in that range, again, everyone's different, but you put them in a room at 7:45, they're gonna be ready to go regardless. They're gonna have energy regardless, in my experience. And they wake up pretty quick. So I'm not sure if anyone has any thoughts on that, but I'd rather see middle school. It feels like more of a natural fit, actually, to me anyway, to have middle school start a little bit earlier. I think they're up. I think they're not sleeping in as much as those other grades, but that's just my own experience.
Lucy, go ahead.
So I hear that, we're using the intermediate school starting late as a reason that we should continue. I think I heard that we're using the intermediate school currently starting after 9 as a reason why we should continue to do that.
No. Can I just interrupt that? That was not what I said.
Okay,
Are you okay if I restate what
sure,
I
and
had said?
then I'll follow up.
Said, I think it's the third time I'm saying it. No matter which way you add this up, a bus has to go from a run to pick up another group of kids. Someone's going to start early, someone's going to be in the middle, someone's going to be later. With a triple tiered route, and you could see if we look at any of these, you could pretty much guess where these buses are going to head to. Like for option 1, most likely the vast majority of those high school routes, as soon as they drop off at the high school, they are most likely turning around and picking up the primary kids. Likewise, the middle school, you'll have some depending on the route, all right? Some may do primary schools as well, but the vast majority of your middle school routes probably end up picking up your intermediate kids, right? So buses are going from one place to another. You can't all be on the same time. So I did not say that because we're doing it now, that's why we continue to do this. What I am saying is the reality of the situation is that you have a triple-tiered busing system. That's reality.
Now can I follow up? You're good? Okay. All right. So the fact that our intermediate schools are starting late now, I think that's already causing a lot of difficulties for families and for kids. If we can, through this round of exercise, be able to solve that problem for our kids, that would be great. So I don't know, what parameter space do we need to set? Is it possible that we set the parameter space that no schools start after 9, and we can tweak what's possibility that we have? 3-tier is one way of doing it. Maybe we can do a 2.5 tier with the best and optimization optimum algorithm, right? So is it possible that we come up with a solution that no schools start at 9? I would love to see what that option look like. If it ends up costing more, I would like to know what that much more is so that we can make an informed decision.
So a 2.5 tier by all rights, I have to imagine would be much more costly than the 3 tier.
I'm glad that we have our transportation.
Mr. Archer, is that an accurate
right?
statement that a 2.5 tier would be much more costly than a 3 tier?
Yes.
We're going from about 84 buses at 3 tier to what, 100 buses at 2.5?
Yeah.
Right.
It's about 100, 110.
And at about $100,000 a piece, that's about, I don't know, $1.6 million roughly. Right.
Higher, yeah.
So, but to answer your other question, like, can we have an option where we don't start at 9 o'clock? Sure. If we want a school to start at 7 o'clock, we can have that option. And then we lose the benefit of a later high school start time. We have someone getting on a bus at, I don't know, 6:15. I mean, are there worlds in which that can happen? Yes. I mean, Mr. Archer said that there were, what, 6 different options that you considered, and for various reasons, many of which I saw had many more buses assigned to them, and therefore much more costly, and therefore budgetary problems. I mean, yeah, we could have as many infinite possibilities as possible, but what is currently being recommended by Mr. Archer and by the administration are one of these 2 options.
And to that point, and I don't want to belabor this, as your superintendent, and I think generally speaking, as a board, I know how Kevin feels. We are fiscally conservative. We are looking at things from a cost-neutral standpoint. As we know, we've kept our tax increases. It was one of the lowest in Somerset County. So I've got to say, to go from a 3-tier to a 2-tier, it's a non-starter. Because you're talking about a significant cost increase, and I don't believe that the community or the board would be in favor of that. I know I certainly wouldn't be, because as we know, with the 2% cap, it's a zero-sum game. So if you're spending, meaning that if I'm spending $1.5 million more in this bucket, well, it's going to come out of a different one. It's not just free money, and I don't mean to lecture, but again, we're looking at solutions. Like we're complaining about a scenario. We're complaining about a scenario, and it's a scenario that, quite frankly, has existed for the last 5 years. So, we've got to look for solutions. And my question for you, and I hope we have time to turn this over to the community, because I think people are here to hear their comments, and I'd like to hear them. Like we're going in a circle, but someone's going to go in that time slot.
I'll make a last comment before we move on. For any optimization, there is a parameter space that's set that we optimize within that parameter space. Is it possible that our parameter space, the boundary, is set to where the latest schools don't start after 9? I would like to see that number. We may not choose that. I would like to see that difference.
Can we not consider the reduction of buses an optimization? I mean, if we're seeing a decline in enrollment, wouldn't a goal maybe be to reduce buses? Because otherwise, is it sustainable if we just keep going the way we're going?
I'm gonna interrupt at this point. We can continue to talk about this afterwards. However, our audience has been very patient, waiting to have their say as well. So I am just going to cut it short at this time, and we can go back to our comments if we feel the need to. Is that all right?
I have made my comments. I'm good. Thank you.
Sure.
I would appreciate, though, after the public comments, is the board prepared to share? Because I need to know the feelings of the public, but also the feelings of the board as far as what option they would go for. Is this something we want to discuss tonight and go around and people, let administration where they stand? Or do we want to push that to the 29th?
Yeah, I think I'd be ready to say what I'm feeling right now.
Okay. All right, so we'll open it to public comment, and then we'll.
I'm sure he wants nothing more. All right, so we're up to the public comment period on the transportation analysis only. Individuals and/or groups are invited, excuse me, my eyesight's going, to present their concerns, comments, and requests only regarding the transportation analysis to the Board of Education at this time. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. Please be advised that a video recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website, and we ask that you state your name and municipality for the record.
Hi, Jim Maloney. I live in Bridgewater. Just a quick question with option 2. Moving the high school about 40 minutes later, I believe it was. How does that affect the students who do half day at VOTEC and their schedules with arriving and leaving school in that period?
That's a good question, and I don't have the information in front of me, but I do know that there are several area schools that are on a similar schedule, being Montgomery and Bernards Township, who are able to make this work, and certainly whatever we need to do to accommodate our VOTEC students, we certainly will.
Thank you.
They start at 7:45.
Who's that? Okay.
Hello, good evening. My name is Megan Simone. I am a Bridgewater resident, but I am also a biology teacher at Chatham High School. And I have been at Chatham since the 06-07 school year, where for the majority of my time there, I worked under the direction of Superintendent Dr. Mike LaSousa, who was a big supporter of later high school start times. So my first year at Chatham, we started at 7:25, then we moved that to 7:40, and then now for the past 3 years, 8:20 with a 3 p.m. dismissal. This is something that Dr. LaSousa worked tirelessly for during his time at Chatham. He has since moved on to Princeton. So I think I offer a unique perspective in that I have both a before and after essentially experience. Anecdotally, I will give you my feedback that my first block students are without a doubt more alert, more attentive, more engaged, and not too sleepy to process content and think critically. It is a tangible difference. Again, it's anecdotal, but it is night and day compared to what it used to be. Someone mentioned before AP Chem at 7:15. I was in the back going, right on. I don't teach AP Chem, I'm bio, but I felt your comment was right on. In addition to my anecdotal feedback, I will let you know that Dr. LaSousa is definitely a science-minded thinking guy. He collected pre and post data and feedback by surveying the community. I'm happy to share that data with you, but I can summarize. There was an increase in hours of sleep per night for high school students. There was an increase in overall feeling of wellness, a decrease in tardies and absences, and a decrease in anxiety, stress, and depression. Dr. LaSousa's survey results align with current research. I recommend you check out Musavi and Troxel's 2023 study, as well as the beliefs of countless pediatricians. And the data isn't surprising. Sleep is a basic need. I learned about it in my intro to educational philosophy class. Sleep is at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchical triangle. Recent neuroscience explains why sleep is so critical to brain function. It's because our brain is cleared of metabolic byproducts and toxins while we sleep, which means less sleep equates to less cleanup, and less cleanup leads to decreased brain function. This explains why sleep-deprived parents of newborns suffer from what's commonly called baby brain. It's the same kind of concept. Sleep prepares our brains to work optimally, which is essentially required for deep learning. For these reasons, I strongly support option 2, the one with the latest high school start time. And I'm not alone, and neither is Chatham, as Superintendent Beers mentioned earlier. Many schools are following suit, including Ridge High School, like Chatham, a high-achieving, academically competitive school. It's my understanding there's been pushback. I think there's always pushback. So I will speak to just 2 points. I'll tell you that there has been minimal conflict with sports at Chatham. We have the same exact schedule as Bridgewater Raritan High School, a modified rotating block, 4-day rotation. So even when students have away games and they need to miss some of their last block class, they're not missing the same class over and over again as in a traditional period 1 through 8 day. And there were many teachers that teachers don't like change. We know this. I could say that as a teacher. But not one teacher ended up leaving when Chatham implemented the later start time. So in closing, I'd really just like to think about the situation globally. I truly feel the goal of a school in a democratic society is to gain wisdom, to be a knowledgeable person, right? To contribute to society. And the information is there for us, right? We know about adolescent melatonin levels. We know about the limbic system's effect on the sleeping brain, and I feel now it's time to implore that information and apply it to this decision. I feel like this decision, choosing option 2, strongly aligns with the district's mission statement to provide outstanding educational opportunities and resources to help all students achieve academic excellence, realize their full potential, and become responsible citizens. The fiscal aspect of option 2, in my opinion, is just gravy. Oh, look at that.
Thank you,
so
Ms.
much.
Simony.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Caroline Rader, also a Bridgewater resident, and I think my fellow Bridgewater resident could not have done a better job at speaking about the impact of sleep with our adolescents. So thank you to Mr. Archer and for the transportation analysis and for the Board of Ed to supporting that. I appreciate hearing an option that enables the imperative of supporting better sleep for adolescent students, albeit, and unfortunately, it sounds like it would just be for the high school students and not middle school students who are also encountering the changes in sleep patterns in puberty. However, just to quote a very small piece of research, there's so much research out there, as you noted before, that there's an overwhelming consensus among researchers regarding chronic sleep deprivation in adolescents and its negative impact on academic, mental, and social behavior. It's extraordinary, and it's rare to have such consistency in results, particularly in studies of complex human behavior such as sleep. So the scientific evidence, as we heard, is very conclusive. This op-ed was published in March of 2009. So here we are, 16 years later, we're still considering an option that makes no change for our district, and that piece is disappointing. As Mr. Beers also noted, in August of 2014, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a plea for all middle school and high school students to have start times no later or no earlier than 8:30 a.m., which was reinforced by the New Jersey AAP following COVID in 2021, 2022. So I do urge the board to act quickly. Now that you've heard these transportation challenges are solvable, at least for our high school students, to consider only plans that move back our start times for our adolescents to be closer in alignment with the AAP recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rader.
Hi, everyone. Laura Kress, first day with my new feet over there, walking up here. President of the Bridgewater Raritan Education Association. So I must say, if any of you were here in the last 10 years, right now I might be having post-traumatic stress a reaction over talking about school start time again. But, so we'll cross that bridge. You know, I'll talk to the powers that be here, talk about the surveys and stuff when that time comes. But I do have a question about before and before. I had it down about before and after care, that was a concern totally, and that though really what I'm interested in, and I know a lot of teachers would be just for this, is what about late buses? I think we block a lot of students. I don't know if that's built in, if that's still, because a lot of students cannot participate in events or in sports. In practices, if they don't have a ride, lots of people have two parents that work and cannot get to pick their kids up. Same thing for extra help. And I feel like that would be really, I mean, when I started here, we had literally like some days 4 late buses, and I know times were different. Anyway, that was just something I was thinking about busing. I'll be back to talk about my other stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just add, and I failed to mention it during our presentation, again, part of this exercise is to find efficiencies within our current system. And one of the things that we are certainly going to explore is to add late buses. Now, I'm not promising, I don't want you to say they're going to happen, but we're definitely going to try to work towards that goal. And that's with the late buses, starting with the middle school first and then going high school, because I do agree with you. It's difficult where you want to keep a kid for extra help, et cetera, for tutoring, and they don't have a ride home. So if we can add that service, which again was lost 5 years ago, that would be big, and we're certainly taking that into account.
Hi, I'm Jessica Levitt. I have 2 students that were recent graduates from the district. I'm very happy to hear that start times of middle and high school were one of the factors that were reviewed with our transportation survey. For those of you who don't know, I have been advocating for healthy school hours in our district for nearly 6 years. And not everyone has heard my comments before, so I'll take this chance to remind you of just a tiny bit of it. But I do think the other parents here have spoken well, particularly the one who has experience at Chatham. All major health organizations in the United States, including the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Center for Disease Control, American Psychological Association, and the U.S. Surgeon General, and many more, agree that start times before 8:30 in the middle and high schoolers are harmful to students. These expert organizations all advocate for healthy school hours because they agree that chronic sleep deprivation is a serious health concern for adolescents. This lack of sleep causes depression, anxiety, substance abuse, suicidal ideation, obesity, eating disorders, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, behavior problems, impaired judgment, car accidents, sports injuries, tardiness and absenteeism, diminished academic performance, and even potential impact on brain development. There is 30 years of conclusive, evidence-based research that shows when middle and high schools move to a later start time, it always results in students getting more sleep. They don't just stay up later. This additional sleep and better sleep that is aligned with their biological clocks reduces all the negative impacts I mentioned before. They are happier and healthier and achieve better in school. Yes, there are other factors to be considered. The perceived obstacles must be handled in the best way for our district. My own kids, this change will no longer benefit my own kids, but it was never about just my kids. It's about what's doing best for the majority, not any one family or student. I wish I didn't personally know of so many kids in our schools that are struggling with mental health, but it's the reality, and if you don't think it's a problem in our schools, then you aren't paying attention. Sure, not all of these problems can be attributed to lack of sleep, and changing start times will not fix them all on its own, but we know that healthy school start times are a concrete, achievable step that has been proven to help. The experts are telling us to do this. How can we not take this step? I commend Mr. Beers and the board for taking this health matter into account when determining how to optimize transportation, and I implore the board to consider this important factor in your decisions of future school schedules. I also wanted to share my experience as a parent in the high school before and after the lost 20 minutes of instruction. It had no impact on their teacher's ability to cover the material. So while I totally understand it, if it just happens to be that adding it back in works with the schedule options, I do hope teachers were consulted and parents were consulted as if there's a value and we aren't just doing this just because that's how it was before, kind of thing. And I assume that that is the case. I want to thank you again for your time and yay for option 2.
Thank you, Ms. Levitt.
My name's Chris. I spoke to you guys. I was here to follow up on concerns I raised in the July meeting regarding significant waste of resources.
Excuse me, sir.
At the school.
Sir?
Yes.
Hi. I'm sorry. This part of public comment is only on the transportation.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a.
We will have another portion very shortly. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment on the transportation proposals? Seeing none, I'm going to close that part of public comment. As I did cut off our comment, I want to make sure that there's nothing else that the board needs to weigh in on. I just want to thank Ms. Kress real quick because I had on my notes late bus and I didn't get the chance to address it yet. I also just want to, and I haven't spoken before, so I'm going to do it now. I want to be clear that there are challenges that are going to be associated with any of our options, and there are numerous considerations that go into this decision. I don't think any of the considerations and any of the hardships or the way that it's going to impact people is taken for granted either by this board or by the administration. I think that this board and the administration are just trying to do what is best for our students in our district and trying to find the options that are most viable for us all. So that's all I have. And I guess since that was me talking, that could be the president's report. Otherwise, all I wanted to say is welcome back to our students and our staff. Our schools are buzzing, and it's great to have everyone back, and I hope you all had a good first week. With that in mind, we will transition to committee reports, which will be very quick. Academic Committee with Mr. Joshi.
Next meeting's on October 6th, virtual at 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. We're then up to Community Relations with Mrs. Lockwood.
Next meeting to be determined.
All right. We'll move to FFT with Mr. Walker.
We'll be on September 16th, the next meeting at 5:30. Kevin, 5 or 5:30. Yeah, we'll be one of those times.
Thank you. Personnel with Mrs. Calistri.
Our next meeting is October 28th.
Thank you. Are there any liaison or delegate reports? Mrs. Hasuna.
Just quick calendar updates for the Somerset County School Board Association. If you can mark your calendars. October 9th, it's a Thursday at Somerset County VOTEC. There's an AI implementation and academic integrity program, which is going to be facilitated by Mr. Beers. So I thought that would be nice to attend. November 17th, there's a meeting. It's a Monday from 6 to 8:30, also at VOTEC. And then long distance, Monday, March 2nd, is Unsung Hero Awards at Somerset County VOTEC.
Thank you, Mrs. Hasuna.
And we have our teacher is receiving the award.
Yes, Ms. Masood, our teacher from Hillside, is the Somerset County's Teacher of the Year. She was actually just honored this past weekend at the Somerset Patriots baseball game. She got to throw out a pitch, and I look forward to having her honored at that meeting. Which one is she being
March
honored?
2nd.
March 2nd. Thank you. Ms.
No,
Privet.
sorry, that's Unsung.
Yeah, that's Unsung Heroes. That's why I was
Unsung
asking.
Heroes.
It'll be the May meeting.
It's May,
It's
yeah.
the May meeting.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't write that one down.
So she has even longer to
Yes.
work on her speech.
It's funny you mentioned the Somerset Patriots game, Mr. Singer, because it was also Borough of Raritan Day at the Somerset Patriots final home game. Council President Don Tozzi was really instrumental in getting a lot of people from town there, and specifically from JFK School. There's a great story up on the JFK website. Mr. Cicino led fourth graders in the choir, singing God Bless America and the national anthem before the game. And there were a lot of people from JFK School and from the Raritan community that were there. There were there's Cubs gear everywhere, not the Chicago Cubs, the JFK Cubs. So it was a really wonderful event. So thank you to everyone who made that possible, particularly Council President Tazi from Raritan, who spearheaded that and got tickets in the hands of so many kids and families. It was a great community event. And also, speaking of the Raritan community, there's Mr. Singer, I don't know if you'd like me to bring this up now. The Borough Council is applying for a grant through Somerset County History Program for a walking trail to identify a number of historic buildings and sites in town, a walking trail, so you could follow it and see some of the buildings and some of the great history that has taken place and is still standing in town. And Mr. Singer, would you like me to bring this up now or save that to new business?
Let's talk about new business.
Okay.
Any other liaison or delegate reports? Mrs. Lockwood.
Hi. Yeah, I attended town council on last Thursday. I just wanted to mention to the board that they approved a pilot agreement for Petersburg Innovation Center, which is like right on US 202, 206. It's the largest development in like 35 years, which would have been the mall. So, you know, we were talking about transportation. I thought that may be relevant. Unlike some other pilot programs, it doesn't bring residents in. It's not apartments, but you know, it's still a pilot program. So I wanted to mention it. That's it. That's all I had.
Thank you, and that was going to be my question. Are there any other liaison or delegates? Mrs. Lee, Dr. Lee.
Thank you. I would like to remind our board that the fall delegate assembly is going to happen in December, and then the deadline to submit a resolution from this board or any resolution from this board would be October the 3rd. Before that, we have one more meeting. So if we want to bring the resolution to the delegate assembly so that can potentially become one of the positions that the NJSBA will take, we have one more meeting to handle that. So I want to remind us of that deadline. Thank you.
Any other liaison or delegate reports? I have a brief one that I'm going to kind of tack on to Mrs. Suna's report. There is a regional information session for school board candidates being held by the NJSBA on October 1st at 7 p.m. at the VOTEC. I know that there's a number of candidates for the school board election in November, and if anyone is interested in finding out more information on what it means to be a school board member, October 1st, 7 o'clock at the VOTEC. With that said, we're up to item number 10, public comment session. Individuals in our groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests to the Board of Education at this time for any matters. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. Please be advised that a video recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website. And again, we ask that you state your full name and municipality for the record. Thank you.
My name's Chris. I live in Bridgewater. I attended the July meeting to let you know about the waste at Bradley Garden School. You, the school board, said you would address the issue. I believe you did. The following week, I did notice the smart boards were finally shut off that were left on from the end of the school year. They stayed off until the teachers came back. Now I find at least one smart board on every night and over the weekend. I do believe you talked to the contractors. Sorry. I observed. After our last meeting, I was glad to see the smart boards return. I've been monitoring several other schools, and here's what I found. At Bradley Gardens, despite my concerns, I continue to see multiple air-conditioned units and lights left on at night. The windows are always left open to one side. And also, I've observed the gym lights on 4 out of the last 6 weekends. I visited other schools, and mostly disappointing picture. Eisenhower appears to be the most responsible. Only a few lights are on, if any. JFK, while the lights are off, the office lights are constantly on. I've also found at least 3 smart boards on and 4 classroom lights on as multiple air conditioners running at night. Middletown lights the gym lights are constantly on. Huge waste of energy. The smart boards are left on all summer, and I see people at school I've seen people at the school late at night. Van Holten is far the worst. I found doors unlocked twice, and I've had to call the police to secure the building. Gym lights have been on 24/7 for over a month. I've also seen air conditioning and smart boards left on. Classroom lights are left on at all hours, and gym equipment left outside for weeks on end. While our property taxes are rising, the community expects the board to be responsible steward for our funds. Wasting electricity and failing to secure school property is the school's mismanagement with the money we provide. This is more than minor oversight. I believe it's a issue that needs to be addressed with urgency. I would urge you to please visit these schools, see what's going on. I don't know if this is just one thing, but I believe you guys do care. You did talk to the schools, but unfortunately, other people are not as concerned as you. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just wondering what time of the evening we're talking about where these things are on.
Around 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock.
Okay. You should know that when schools are open, we do have our night cleaning crews in.
I go when.
So there are going to, let me just finish. It's not a back and forth. So we do have lights on when the crews are cleaning, but I'll certainly take your comments into account.
I usually go when there's no vehicles in the parking lot.
Any other public comment? Ms. Chris?
Again, Laura Kress, president of the Bridgewater Raritan Education Association. I think I really need people to kind of understand, and I know we've said it, but like honestly, with the construction this summer, JFK, Hamilton, Bradley, and Van Holten, like those teachers that put those schools, their classrooms, and it wasn't all of them, but put their classrooms back together, honestly deserve like a medal or something, because I was there. I found out on Labor Day weekend on Saturday, the teachers were in Bradley Gardens, 4 or 5 of them. And the district definitely had the cleaning crew in. There were 10 or 12 people cleaning there. I mean, I'm not saying this is a diss on, you know, the work that the district was doing, but honestly, these teachers like pulled it together in a way that I'm not sure I would have wanted to or been willing to. So I'm being serious. Like I walked in there and I was, you know, really like impressed and yet, you know, dumbfounded at, my God, what has happened here? But it's come together since. But I really just think they deserve, you know, like acknowledgement at the least, because it was a lot. And it seems as though negotiations has come to a close, right? So we ratified today. Now I think it's your turn. It passed on our side resoundingly. So I hope it's the same here. And then I'll thank everybody next time we meet for that. Thank you. Have a good night.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the agenda. We're up to item number 11, the approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes that need to be made? Seeing none. Mr. Lumsky, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Asuna,
Abstain.
Mr. Joshi,
Abstain on both regular and closed sessions.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri,
Abstain?
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We're going to have a slight change to the agenda. The personnel items are going to be moved down to the end of the agenda. We are now up to curriculum 2616 and curriculum 2617.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Lumsky, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Asuna,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Recuse on curriculum 2616 and yes on curriculum 2617. We're up to the business items, business 2628 through business 2632.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? I would like to thank the Van Holten PTO for supplying a microwave for the faculty lounge. I'm sure the teachers really appreciate that. I would like to thank the anonymous donor for purchasing books for the library. My wife really appreciates that because she's a librarian in another district. And finally, thank you, Mr. Gum, for donating a cello. Unless there are any other, Dr. Lee.
For public information, can you comment on 2632? What is that change of order? Thank you.
The auditorium change order is for changing the wood paneling on the front of the stage. It was extended out. And the change order for the middle school, I believe, is for adding window shades to renovated classrooms.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Mr. Lomsky, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Asuna.
Yes.
Mr. Joshi.
Yes.
Ms. Lochran.
Yes.
Dr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Pepe.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Calistri.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We now move on to special services 2609.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Any questions? Was it? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Lomsky, please call the roll.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Asuna.
Yes.
Mr. Joshi.
Yes.
Ms. Lochran.
Yes.
Dr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Pepe.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Calistri.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We move on to policy 2604 and policy 2605.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
My only comment, if I could, Mr. Singer, sorry.
Please.
My only comment is on 141.3, which is board member number and term for regional school districts. This has looking it over again, it has basically everything from state statute on regional school districts, which is a lot. We are the simplest kind with two municipalities, but it gets into boards that have more than 9 towns and how votes can be weighted and how that has to be constantly changed and shifted. So I'm going to vote yes, but I do worry that if someone was looking at our bylaws to see how this law works, they're going to get lost in all that because there is quite a lot that's not relevant to Bridgewater Raritan. That said, it is recommended by Strauss-Esme. It is governance overall for regional school districts, so it's probably can't steer us wrong to have it there. But I do worry that I do think it's possible that someone could get confused looking at it because I did a little bit. So, and most of it's not relevant. So possibly in the future we could take a look at it if anyone's interested.
That's one of those questions that I often have whenever there's a Strauss-Esme policy that has that deals with charter schools or other schools that don't apply to us, and usually the response is, well, it doesn't hurt to have it in.
Yeah, and that's the feedback I know the administration prefers. So for now, I'm certainly fine with it.
Especially when this kind of law, which is just a cut and paste from,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this kind of policy, which is cut and paste from the law.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Anyone
Thank
else?
you. And thank you, Dr. Fonda, for sending that information along.
Seeing no other comments, Mr. Alomsky, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Asuna.
Yes.
Mr. Joshi.
Yes.
Ms. Lochran.
Yes.
Dr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Pepe.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Calistri.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We're going to move on to item number 13, old business. Is there any old business that needs to be brought up? I'm going to bring up the board norms. Most of the board at this point has signed on to these board norms. If you have not, I ask that you come up after the meeting and sign the board norms as well. If there's nothing else on that, Okay, I'll move on to new business. Is there any new business?
I just have something brief. I know it's been mentioned to me that at the Hamilton school, some of our swings are like kind of rusty, like the handles and the chains, and that they might be a little bit too low to the ground at our Hamilton school playgrounds. So this was just a small issue that was brought up to me, and I was wondering if, like, you know, what sort of, if someone could like take a look and maybe see if we can.
That seems to me to be an issue that should be directed to the principal of that school and not to the board.
It was just mentioned to me, so I wanted to bring
Okay,
it up.
well, so any complaints like that pursuant to policy are supposed to be directed to the superintendent.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I'm
So-
directing
so-
it now.
So this is not the proper forum for that? The proper forum would be to bring that to Mr. Beers' attention.
Yeah, so then I can deal with it in real time versus waiting for a meeting. It would be beneficial if you could just shoot me that email or give me a call, and then I can figure it out.
Is there any other new,
But certainly, we'll look at that.
is there any other new business?
Just two things, both dealing with the Borough of Raritan. First, just wanted to mention September 21st is the John Baslam Parade. We had a great ceremony last fall to rededicate and install a memorial at the football field, at Baslam Field. We have a great parade lined up, honored to have two World War II veterans serving as Grand Marshals, including Mr. Roy Ruffa, who was present at that ceremony. I know Mr. Moran helped get him there, which is wonderful, and it's wonderful that he's kind of become re-involved with the Baslam Foundation and the community on this thing. He is an Army Air Force veteran, went to Raritan schools his entire life up until Somerville High School, currently lives in Scotch Plains, and we're thrilled that he's serving as a Grand Marshal. Also, Ben Jackson, who was a Marine in the Second World War. Unbelievably, he'll be marching in this parade. He marched in a parade in Hawaii in July of 1944. He was part of the Color Guard that was held to honor a visit from Franklin Roosevelt. So he was in that parade, and he'll be marching and leading the parade in Raritan. So thank you to those gentlemen and all of our veterans. And in the spirit of that, there was a request from the Raritan Borough Council, particularly Councilman Agrawal, our liaison, to have the board, to seek the board's support for a CHIP grant application. That's the County History Partnership Program, which distributes money within Somerset County to work on history projects. And in this case, it's identifying landmarks, identifying Gold Star homes, homes that in the past or maybe currently have people serving who sadly didn't make it back. And they're looking to highlight that, and they asked for the support of the district and the board to support the application. And I know Mr. Singer helped to draft a letter, and just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Sure, and you know, I did draft a letter for execution by me and Mr. Pepe as liaison, supporting it. It will be of no cost to the district, of course. The Public Library of Raritan is also supporting this. It could be, I think, a wonderful tool for our students, a field trip where they can learn about the history of Raritan and Raritan's particular connection to the World Wars and American Revolution history. And so unless there's any objection from the board, I will be sending out a letter in support, basically just saying that. Is there any objection?
I love it. I think it's great.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singer, and thank you to the board for supporting that.
And I will send a copy of the letter to the board.
Would it be better to have a resolution or a letter? I'm just asking you because immediate time frame. I mean, a resolution I'd like to have ahead of time, but a letter will get it done now.
He needs it by Thursday.
Okay, so, yeah, it's
Yeah,
understandable.
the request came right at the beginning of the school year, so understandably, the board was busy with that. And it was a quick application, so they thought it would help.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary, though. It was clear that they don't,
No, but I think that we should support municipalities in
For
this
sure.
endeavor.
I agree with the
whenever we
support.
can.
I was just would
Yep,
have liked the
of course.
resolution versus a letter.
No, I appreciate
next
it.
time, if you don't mind.
Understood. Any other new business?
Bob, do you want to talk about the scheduling? Did you want to talk about this meeting about the choices for the options for the start
Oh,
times?
you wanted a straw poll.
Straw poll, where people sit.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Barry, for reminding me of that.
Yes, I appreciate that, Barry. I don't know if we could just take a moment and go around the table just to see, because this is a large decision. It's going to affect a lot of people, and it's important for us, the administrative team, to really hear where the board stands. So I don't know if we could go around.
Before we do that, though, can we have we were informed that Mr. Archer doesn't have a recommendation, but does the administration have a recommendation between the two options?
At this point, I want to hear what everyone says first.
All right. I guess if
Well,
we're.
Mike, we're going to start with you.
Oh, good. So looking at them, I could see the merits of both. I think that we need to, I think there's a moment of great opportunity. We need to, sorry, say with the referendum, obviously there were going to be changes. I think this is a natural outgrowth of that. Looking at the two options, I'm in favor of option 2, starting the high school a little bit later. Going back to what we had, what was in place before I was on the board about 5 or 6 years ago. I do have some concerns about the primary school start times. I'd love to see those get pushed back a little bit, if possible. But overall, for the district, look, I think families have kids all different ages, and I think families are going to be able to deal with within reason, what they're presented with. And I think they'll understand that all of these changes are being made for the benefit of kids, and there's so many great opportunities coming along with the referendum. So I'm all that is to say, right now I'm very much in favor of option 2, but would love to see some tweaks on that. That's my only concern.
And I've heard the same thing from Lucy as well, is that to really see if we can condense those times in any way possible to try to see what the efficiencies can bring us, because that is one of the potential outcomes, where if we're able to trim certain routes and make things more efficient, whether it's with stops, et cetera, that you may be able to play with those times a little bit. But that's what we're going to run through.
Everything Mike said, option 2 for me.
Just much more succinctly and less babbly. So.
Yeah, I'd compliment the district. It's been a very strategic and well thought out process. Bringing an outside agency, and it was an optimization. I'm sure he looked at all different areas and multiple different things. I like option 2, and I think it's the best option for optimizing our district and looking at the number of kids and putting effective start times in there for whatever. I mean, I'd love to get later all of them at the same time, but they just have the cost and time. But we're doing it. I think we're matching up as in the right rhythms of their biological clocks. And, I mean, I think, and the impact will be very minimal. I did some checking on some of the activities. The one activity is at 4 o'clock is tennis for the township. So the tennis courts have lights. So that's the other side. So there are lights in those courts. So there is the opportunity to, they're later. But I think the impact will be minimal. And as with anything, they changed the last time. We changed the last time, and we're changing this time. I'm glad that I like the idea that kids aren't just lingering between the 2 o'clock and the 4 o'clock. I mean, they may get more pizza, the snacks from the PTO, but I'm on for option 2.
We're going to move on to Mr. Suna next.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Off the bat, I would say option 2. As a parent who has now run the gamut of the entire district, where I personally had the most flexibility, and I would think a lot of other people do, is that K through 4 time. It got more and more difficult later, and honestly, Eisenhower was the most difficult for me because I was back trying to work, and that time was just rough. So, having been through the whole thing, option 2.
Mr. Lee?
I can just say from personal experience that I've always been a late riser. So, waking up at 6 a.m. in high school and going to the bus stop by 6:15 was a very, very unfun experience, especially in the wintertime. It's pretty brutal. And, I was the first stop in the bus ride, so it was actually pretty terrible. You're right. No, you don't really get a good nap in because the suspension in the buses are terrible and you're just bouncing around everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking from my perspective as a student because this is where I really feel like I can add value. And I can say, I think looking at the transportation analysis, I'd love to see the middle school maybe moving a little bit later, and I'd love to see the primary school moving a little earlier, but kind of taking into consideration the fact that it really, really is going to transform so many high schoolers' lives. The fact that the middle school doesn't change too much. And I think even for a primary school level, right, I think later is better than too early for our primary school students. Even if it is too late, which I agree it's not optimal, I would definitely say like option 2 would be something I'd want as a student myself.
Thank you. I think I've spoken a lot. I'll be succinct this time. I think that I like the idea of us looking at this. Both options improved in instruction time, so I want to commend the administration and our consultant to look into that. However, at this point, I cannot firmly stand behind either because I think that we can do better in tightening up the operation. And then I commend Mr. Beers in looking into a possibility of moving the later ones a little closer, a little earlier. So I look forward to hear that. And I'm not comfortable at this point supporting either because there's a later someone. I feel like we should get out of that zero-sum mentality. We can do better. Let's be innovative. I want to hear an improvement on that. And thank you.
Well, Jessica's not here to hear it, but we fought a lot about this, and having seen the whole cycle from the beginning, and the advocacy not just by her but by others, and being in firm disagreement most of the time. I have to say congratulations to Jessica for following through all the way to the end. And I think we can't lose sight of the fact that reducing the number of buses is a big deal. Like, that's an efficiency in and of itself. So if moving forward based on efficiency makes the most sense, I think option 2 is the most efficient.
All right, I'm up. I support option 2 as well. I'll start with that. My reasons are school start times for the high school, I think, is huge. We've been talking about this since I've been on the board. So it's nice to see. It might only be a half hour, but it's something. So it's helping them get a little extra sleep. What? 40 minutes. Oh, 40. Sorry. Okay, even better. 40 minutes. The other thing, I do agree with Dr. Lee that the elementary level is a little later. So if we could even fix it by 5 minutes, that'd be wonderful. So I'm definitely supporting 2. I think it's a better option. And as Mrs. Loughran said, we're helping cut costs. So everything is about how we can try to save money with rising costs. So I think that's really important. So I'm 2.
Yeah. So on that topic, one of the reasons that we're in this situation in the very first place is that one of the reasons that the high school was so early is because it costs, because of the number of buses that we needed to have. We don't live in a perfect world where we can have 8 a.m. for everyone or 8:30 for everyone. There are school districts that can do that, and I commend them. There are school districts that are just walking, and we're not that. We have, what are we, 25 square miles, Mr. Walker? You know, 32 square miles. See, I knew it. I knew you knew it. And we have 7 elementary schools. I'm not saying anything that the people here don't already know. It is not an ideal situation, and we are making the best of a non-optimal, suboptimal situation. I also want to thank our administration, particularly Mr. Lumsky and Mr. Beers, for putting in so much time and effort into this, for following up on what he said years ago with we will deal with school start time when we deal with referendum. You have definitely done that. And as others have said, look, it's 40 minutes. It's great for kids. It's not the hour, but again, we don't live in that perfect world, so we have to weigh all of our different considerations. With that, I also want to say that I mentioned before there are a lot of different considerations here: athletics, practicing, tutoring, people with jobs, students with jobs, teacher schedules, daycare, all of that. And thankfully, we have incredibly competent is not the right word because it seems dismissive. We have incredibly talented administration and staff who will rise to the occasion and deal with all of the challenges that we face and turn them into opportunities, I'm sure. So with that, I am, of course, in favor of option number 2.
So I mean, with that, it seems basically unanimous, 8-1. And again, I want to look at, get some feedback from everyone, but this definitely appears to be the direction that we're going to be headed. And there may be some iterations of this, but, that's certainly the option that we'll work towards and push towards.
Thank you, Mr. Sure.
I think it was not certain that, not certain that we actually took a vote to say 8-1. I'm not saying that I don't think we're voting no. What I had wanted to see is a tighter operation.
Okay.
Yes.
I believe that you were heard in that regard.
All right, thank you.
With that, we're going to go into closed session to discuss negotiations. I will say that normally when I say we're going into a closed session, I say we will not be voting on anything when we come back. That is not what I'm saying this time. As I discussed before, the personnel section is being moved to the end of the agenda. We will come out of closed session and we will then vote on the personnel section of the agenda. So if you want to stick around for that, you're welcome to. If you don't, it will also be streamed, correct? Yeah. So you can see the outcome of that vote on the stream. But with that, I'm going to state that, where am I here? Whereas discussion by the board is required on matters that are exceptions to the requirement that a public body hold its meetings in public, and whereas the topics for discussion are negotiations, whereas it is expected that the details of the discussion may be made public as soon as the issues may be acted upon publicly, be it resolved that the board enters into closed session at this time. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We are in closed session. As I said before, we will come back out, have a vote, and then we have another closed session after that. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess so that people can use the restroom as needed? Yes? Great. Okay, we're back from closed session. We're back from closed session into open session. The next item on our agenda is Personnel 2607 through Personnel 2610, right? Because we have to walk in the memorandum of understanding between the BREA. Is that correct?
Should we do that first, just in case?
Well, that's why I'm asking it, like, am I
Okay.
just adding it on to the agenda that way?
Right, we could just amend the agenda. We don't need to have a vote, as long as the board is clear about what they're voting on. So
Right.
if we want to just simply, as a, matter of note for the public's sake, that we're adding a 10th agenda item that is the
Sure.
memorandum of agreement with the BREA, and just note the rider to the memorandum of agreement. So there's a MOA and the rider to the MOA. That's what the board will be voting on. If it's not already on the agenda, yes, we can just note that that's number 10, you said was the
Yes,
item?
Personnel 2610.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
just simply
Sylvester.
note that when the motion, it's 1 through 10.
7 through 10.
7 through 10, excuse me.
No, so Personnel 2610 is a walk-in item. So because we had the discussion, we can now walk that item in. We've already had discussion on 2610, and anything else would really have to be back in closed session, I would assume, because it's a personnel item. So with that, I'm just going to ask Mr. Lumsky to call the roll on, again, Personnel 2607 through 26.
Do we have a motion?
Nope. I need a motion for Personnel 2607 through 2610. We have a motion now. Thank you, and we have a second. Mr. Lumsky, could you please call the roll?
Yes.
Ms. Asuna,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Dr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
I'm going to abstain on the entire motion.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
I'm going to abstain on Personnel 2610, yes to everything else. The motion passes, and thank you very much. We're now going to go back into... We're now going back into closed session. I keep doing that. Whereas discussion by the board is required on matters that are exceptions to the requirement that a public body hold its meetings in public, and whereas the topics for discussion are superintendent evaluation, whereas it is expected that the details of the discussion may be made public as soon as the issues may be acted upon publicly, be it resolved that the board enters into closed session at this time.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And unlike the last time, the only thing that we will be voting on when we come out of closed session is a motion to adjourn, so there will be no action items to be voted on for the rest of this evening. Thank you.